We're here with the Ambassador of Ireland to Germany, Ambassador Mulhall. Okay, first question, Ambassador. Now Ireland has somewhat lost its reputation as a Celtic tiger economy following its economic difficulties in the Eurozone crisis. How can Ireland rebuild its global image? Does cultural diplomacy have a role in this at all?
The answer is yes and yes. The answer to your first question, will we rebuild our image? And the answer is we are rebuilding our image. We had a few years of extreme economic difficulty, particularly in 2009 when our economy declined in size by about 7-8%. It was a catastrophic economic decline caused by the collapse of our property sector and the construction industry, which had become oversized for a country of our population. And therefore we're suffering still the effects of that decline in the construction sector, which had become an overly sized part of our economy. But the last couple of years, we have seen an economic turnaround. In 2010, the economy was more or less flat. It declined by about 0.4%.
Right.
Last year, we had an economic growth figure of 1%. So that, when you go from 8-9% in 2009 minus to minus 0.4% in 2010 to +1. +1 doesn't sound brilliant, but in the context of the last few years, it's a great performance.
And it's not a recession, I suppose.
And it means that the recession is over, but our problems, of course, are not over. What's happened in the last few years is that we have turned the economy around by going back to what we were originally good at, which was having a competitive, export-oriented economy. For 5 or 6 years, we relied too much on construction, in building things to sell to each other, which is not a sustainable economic model. Now we've gone back to the competitive, export-oriented economy, and that is paying dividends. And even though our domestic economy is still relatively weak because the government has had to make tax increases, reduce government spending, all of which removes energy from the economy. The economy is being given renewed vigour by the strength of our export sector, which in 2010 exports increased by 9%, last year about 6%. So we've seen dramatic economic recovery in exports, and that is compensating for the continued weakness of our domestic economy. Has cultural diplomacy anything to do with it? The answer is yes.
Right, okay.
And the reason for that is that last year, tourism numbers into Ireland were up by 10% plus. That's a good thing. What has that got to do with cultural diplomacy? The answer is that most people who come to Ireland are sightseeing culture seekers. In other words, we don't get the sun worshippers coming to Ireland to lie on a beach. We get people who come to Ireland because of an interest in our culture. And that demonstrates that our image and reputation as an interesting country with an interesting culture is benefiting us economically by bringing more and more tourists to Ireland. And we hope to continue that process this year. And I was at the ITB this morning talking to Irish companies in the tourism sector and to German tour operators, and they're all reporting very strong interests in Ireland among Germans this year because of renewed interest in Ireland. Prices have come down in Ireland for tourism products. It means Ireland has become far more affordable. The attractions of Ireland are still there. The scenery, the sightseeing is still there. The cultural attraction is still strong. So for all of those reasons, yes, our cultural identity and therefore our cultural diplomacy is an important factor in our recovery.
Would you put down this interest in the cultural identity of Ireland down to a successful national brand at all? Or a
well, I don't really like to talk about a national brand because I think a nation is too complex an entity to be reduced to a simple word like a brand. But I think that it is true to say that having a complex identity is an important asset when it comes to attracting tourists to your country, because obviously some people like to go on holidays and experience a fairly sort of standard brand of tourism with a good hotel with all the facilities that you expect from a good hotel, with a particular offering in terms of a beach and sun and so on. Ireland offers a different package. It offers a package based on the friendliness and hospitality of the people, the fact that our country is essentially English speaking, which means that foreign tourists who understand English can access our culture directly. They can go to plays, they can read the newspapers, they can listen to the radio, they can watch TV, they can go to the pubs and talk to local people. They can access our culture directly. They can go to various events and they will feel a connection with it because of their possession of the English language. So I think our national brand, if I can for a moment use that phrase, I would say it's the combination of tradition and modernity that is the essential Irish offering that we do have. For example, I always make the point that in Ireland, on any evening in any town in Ireland, you can go and hear traditional music played in one pub, and down the street you can hear excellent rock music, and there's no contradiction between those two things. They both belong to Ireland. They're different aspects of Ireland. And I think it's the blending of those two, the fact that we have our traditional music, our traditional culture, our own Gaelic national games that are only played in Ireland, but combined with that we have our rugby team, we have our international soccer team that's qualified for the European Championships this year. That'll be an important branding operation as well, because people in Poland and Ukraine and all over the world will see the Irish fans, and they'll see that they're extremely well behaved, very lively, very friendly, very impressive when they meet people. And we found, for example, when Ireland qualified for the World Cup in Italy in 1990, because of that, the number of Italian tourists coming to Ireland the following year went up hugely, because they met these Irish people and discovered, hey, these people are a bit different. They're not like English or Americans. They speak English, but they're a bit different. They're a bit more, they have a different culture, different approach to life, you know. And that's not to say in any way to criticise or to say that England or America are, but they're just different. And people, when they see Irish people first, they think, oh, well, they're just like, it's just like a kind of a branch of the general English-speaking world. When they meet Irish people, they realise that we're somewhat different. We have a temperament that's somewhat different, which comes from our Celtic roots, our Celtic past. That'll be my explanation of how national branding relates to our current situation.
If I could just touch on something
Sure.
you said about austerity measures.
Yeah.
Well, from my understanding of the situation, it's a German kind of dictated, well, not German, but more so EU dictated commitment to austerity measures, which might not be the best way to, there's obviously different ways to encourage growth. Does this make your job as ambassador to Germany more difficult?
Well, first of all, what I would say is that I would completely reject the idea that this is an EU or a German imposed austerity program.
Start again.
No, we can't start again. We'll carry on.
No, just ask the question again.
Just ask the basic question.
Sure,
Sorry,
yeah.
okay. No, I would completely reject the idea that the program we're involved in at the moment is a German dictated or an EU dictated program. It's a program that has been agreed between the Irish government, the EU, the Central Bank, the European Commission, and the IMF. And the program is designed to get Ireland back to a situation in the coming years where we can resume normal international borrowing on the international markets and do not have to rely on guarantees from the European Union in order to be able to borrow. So it's not dictated from outside, it's dictated by the circumstances in which we find ourselves, that we are unable to borrow in the normal way because the international markets have temporarily lost confidence in Ireland, and the priority for Ireland is to restore that confidence, to ensure that in the coming years the markets will again see Ireland as a good place, a safe place, a sensible place in which to lend their money with the guarantee that that money will be paid back. Now, there's no question Ireland will pay its debts. It always would, always will, always would have. But doubts have arisen in the minds of investors and of the international financial community, and we have to calm those doubts. And the way we calm those doubts is by having a programme for a few years where we have the support of the European Union, of the IMF, and it allows us to get our economy back into shape again, grow our economy, and demonstrate to the outside world that Ireland is a viable economic entity going forward.
So, do you think that there's any space for a political or a financial stimulus then, or do you?
Well,
agree with
obviously,
that idea?
the European Union, the last European Council did devote considerable time to the whole idea of how we can stimulate our economies. But obviously, in the Irish case, there isn't a possibility for us to turn the tap on and devote vast resources to the revival and the stimulation of our economy, because we simply don't have the money to do it. But we've got to find other ways of doing it, and there are sensible ways in which it can be done. For example, talking about tourism, in the last few months, the Irish government reduced the VAT rate on tourism-related services. And what that does is it gives a boost to tourism, it brings in more revenue into the country, and the revenue you bring in through tourism makes up for the loss that you sustain by having a lower VAT rate on certain products. So things like that we've done. We've also reduced the airport tax. We have done a number of things in order to hopefully stimulate our tourism sector, and it worked last year. We did have a significant growth in tourism last year, and we expect to have further similar level of growth this year. And I was very encouraged this morning out at the tourism conference to find that all of the Irish agencies and the customers that were there were all reporting very strong interest this year in Ireland.
Okay, I think we'll have to bring this to an end.
Yeah, we
in a minute or
can
so.
continue afterwards if you like as well. I don't mind. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Should we do that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Then. Well, thanks for now.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Have a great one. Thanks a lot.